Did you know some pennies in your pocket could be worth thousands? That's right. You could be spending a rare and valuable coin without even realizing it. In today's video, we're revealing 10 valuable pennies still in circulation that could make you a fortune. Make sure you watch till the end because we have a bonus penny that hardly anyone knows about. Let's get started. What if I told you that a simple 1967 penny, yes, just 1 cent, could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? That's right. Before you toss that pocket change aside, you need to check for this penny because it might just make you rich. Stay with me because in the next few minutes, we're diving deep into why this coin is turning heads in the collector's world and how you can spot one worth serious cash. Let's take a quick trip back to 1967. It was a time of change. America was in the midst of the Vietnam War, the Beatles were taking over the music charts, and the US Mint was making some crucial decisions that would impact coin collectors for decades to come. During this period, the US Mint was dealing with a nationwide coin shortage. To combat this, they temporarily stopped using mint marks on all coins, so whether a penny was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, it would look the same. That means every 1967 Lincoln penny you find will have NO mint mark, but some of them are worth way more than just 1 cent. So what makes some of these 1967 pennies incredibly valuable? Well, it's all about errors and rare features. Here are some of the biggest moneymakers. First up, the double die obverse. This error happens when the coin's design is accidentally struck twice, creating a doubled effect. Look closely at the date, 1967, and the word Liberty. If you see noticeable doubling, you might be looking at a penny worth hundreds. Next, we have off-center strikes. If your penny looks like part of the design is missing because it was struck off-center, the more extreme the misalignment, the higher the value. Some of these have sold for over $300. Ever seen a penny where some letters look faded or completely missing? This can be due to a weak strike or grease-filled die errors. Depending on how dramatic it is, collectors will pay top dollar for these. Now let's talk about some real numbers. A regular 1967 penny in circulated condition? Probably worth just face value. But check this out. A pristine, uncirculated 1967 penny with a rich red luster sold for a staggering $4,700 at auction. Why? Because condition matters. The higher the grade, the higher the price. Text overlay, double die 1967 penny, sold for $2,000. And remember that double die error? One of those recently went for over $2,000. So if you have a 1967 penny with doubling, don't spend it, get it checked. So how can you spot a valuable 1967 penny? Here's a quick checklist. Heavy checkmark, look for doubling on the date and Liberty. Heavy checkmark, check for off-center strikes or missing letters. Heavy checkmark, examine the color. Red, high value, brown, lower value. Heavy checkmark, condition is king. Higher grades sell for more. Heavy checkmark, get rare finds authenticated by a grading service like PCGS or NGC. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever found a 1967 penny in your pocket change? Do you think you might have one of these valuable errors? This simple 1971 penny could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That's right, you might have one in your pocket right now without even realizing its true value. But what makes this penny so special? And how can you tell if you have a jackpot coin? Let's dive in. First, let's talk about why the 1971 Lincoln penny was minted. By 1971, the United States Mint had been producing the Lincoln cent for over 6 decades, ever since it replaced the Indian head penny in 1909. Made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, this penny has a rich reddish-brown glow when in pristine condition. But here's the kicker, this year's pennies weren't supposed to be anything out of the ordinary. Yet some turned out to be incredibly valuable due to mint errors and rare varieties. And that's what we're here to uncover. Now, this is where things get interesting. There are multiple valuable errors you need to look for in the 1971 penny. Let's go over the biggest moneymakers. One of the most famous and valuable errors is the double die obverse. This means the coin's design was accidentally struck twice, creating a noticeable doubling effect on letters like Liberty and In God We Trust. Some of these have sold for over $1,000 at auction. Next up, we have off-center strikes. These happen when the coin isn't properly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to be missing. The more dramatic the off-center error, the more valuable it can be. Some have sold for several $100s. If you find a 1971 penny where the letters in Liberty or the date look faint or completely missing, you could have a rare collector's item. These are caused by grease-filled dies, which prevent a full imprint on the coin. Alright, now let's talk money. How much are these error pennies actually selling for? Money Egg Double Die Obverse sold for $1,150 in a high-grade condition at auction. Money Egg Off-Center Strikes, depending on severity, can fetch $100 to $300 plus. Money Egg Other Errors, Weak Strikes, Die Cracks, or Missing Letters have sold for anywhere between $50 to several $100s depending on condition. As you can see, collectors love these rare finds. If you spot one in your collection, you might be sitting on a small fortune. Now, how can you tell if you have a valuable 1971 penny? Here's a simple checklist. White heavy checkmark, look for doubling in Liberty and In God We Trust, double die obverse. White heavy checkmark, check for an off-center strike. The more dramatic, the better. White heavy checkmark, inspect for missing letters or weak details. These can indicate a rare mint error. White heavy checkmark, condition matters. Coins with bright luster and little wear fetch the highest prices. White heavy checkmark, get it professionally graded. If you think you have a rare one, send it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC for an official evaluation. 1973 penny could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Yes, a penny you might have in your pocket change right now could turn out to be a rare collector's item. But what makes it so valuable? Stick with me because by the end of this video you'll know exactly what to look for. Before we dive into the rare errors and high-dollar auctions, let's take a quick look at why the 1973 Lincoln penny was minted. By the early 1970s, inflation was on the rise, and there was even talk about replacing the penny with aluminum to save on production costs. However, due to pushback from vending machine companies and the public, the U.S. Mint continued producing pennies in their traditional 95% copper and 5% zinc composition. In 1973, the U.S. Mint struck pennies in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S. The Philadelphia Mint produced the highest number of pennies, but some of them turned out to be very special. Now, let's talk about what really gets collectors excited: errors and varieties. If you're lucky enough to find one of these error pennies, you could be holding onto a small fortune. Here are some of the most valuable errors found on 1973 pennies. Fire Double Die Obverse DDO. Some 1973 pennies were struck with a doubled image due to a misalignment in the minting process. Look closely at Liberty and In God We Trust. If you see any doubling, you've hit the jackpot. Fire Off-Center Strikes. Some pennies were struck incorrectly, resulting in part of the design missing. The more off-center the strike, the rarer and more valuable the penny. Fire Floating Roof Error. A famous 1973 error where the roof of the Lincoln Memorial appears detached from the rest of the building due to a die abrasion. If you find one of these, collectors will pay a premium. Fire Missing Letters or Weak Strikes. If any letters in Liberty or the date look faint or missing, it could indicate a weak strike or grease-filled die error, making your penny worth more. So, how much are these 1973 pennies actually selling for? Well, let's take a look at some recent auction results. Money Egg, a rare 1973 double die penny in top condition, sold for over $1,000. Money Egg Off-Center Strikes have fetched anywhere from $50 to several $100s, depending on the severity. Money Egg High Grade. Uncirculated 1973 pennies with a strong strike and red luster can sell for $200 to $500. And here's the crazy part. These values keep increasing because collectors are always hunting for high-quality error coins. Alright, now that you know what makes a 1973 penny valuable, here's a checklist of things to look for in your change. White heavy checkmark, check for doubling in Liberty and In God We Trust. White heavy checkmark, look for off-center strikes, especially those missing 50% or more of the design. White heavy checkmark, inspect the Lincoln Memorial for the floating roof error. White heavy checkmark, check the color bright red. Uncirculated pennies are worth the most. Why heavy check mark? If you think you have a rare penny, get it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. Imagine finding a simple 1976 penny in your pocket, and then realizing it could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Sounds unbelievable, right? Well, some of these pennies have sold for shocking prices. Could you have one sitting in a jar at home? Stick with me because I'm about to show you exactly what to look for and how you might cash in. Before we dive into the rare errors and insane values, let's take a quick look at why this penny even exists. 1976 was a huge year in American history. It marked the bicentennial, celebrating 200 years of independence. While special bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollars were minted with unique designs, the humble Lincoln penny kept its classic look. Now, here's something interesting. If your 1976 penny has NO mint mark, it was minted in Philadelphia. But don't be fooled. Not all no mint mark pennies are valuable. The secret lies in rare errors and high-grade conditions that collectors go crazy for. Alright, let's get to the good stuff. The rare errors that could turn your penny into a fortune. Here are some of the most valuable mistakes to watch for. White heavy checkmark double die obverse. Look closely at Lincoln's eye, the date, and the word liberty. If the letters or numbers look doubled, you could have a rare variety worth big bucks. White heavy checkmark off center strike. If the penny was struck incorrectly at the mint, part of the design may be missing or shifted. The more off center, the higher the value, especially if the date is still visible. White heavy checkmark missing letters or weak strike. Some pennies are missing letters in Liberty or In God We Trust due to a grease-filled die. While not always super valuable, some of these can still fetch good money. White heavy checkmark clipped planchet. If a small section of the coin appears cut off or has a curved edge, it's a minting error that collectors love. Now, let's talk about what really gets collectors opening their wallets. High auction prices. Alright, let's get into the numbers. How much are people actually paying for these rare 1976 pennies? Small blue diamond, a 1976 no mint mark Lincoln penny in MS67 red, which means it's in pristine condition with a deep red color, sold for over $7,000 at auction. Small blue diamond, even less than perfect examples with rare errors, have sold for hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on condition and demand. Small blue diamond common 1976 pennies in average condition, worth only face value. But if you find one with a rare error or in top condition, you could be looking at a serious payday. So, how do you know if your penny is valuable? Let's break it down. ACT 4, what to look for? If you have a 1976 penny, here's your checklist. Heavy checkmark color matters. Pennies can be brown, red-brown, or full red. Red ones in high grade are the most valuable. Heavy checkmark, look for errors. Grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and inspect the date, letters, and overall shape. Heavy checkmark condition is key. Coins with minimal wear, sharp details, and a glossy shine are worth sending in for professional grading. Heavy checkmark, weigh your penny. A normal 1976 penny should weigh 3.11 grams. If yours is significantly different, it might be a rare transitional error. If you think you've found a valuable one, consider getting it graded by PCGS or NGC. This can significantly increase its value at auction. Alright, now it's your turn. Have you ever come across a rare 1976 penny? Go check your collection, your pocket change, even that old coin jar. You never know what treasure you might have. Yes, you heard that right. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny and how you could be holding a small fortune without even realizing it. Stay with me until the end because I'll show you exactly what to look for. First, let's go back in time to 1978. This was the era of disco fever. Star Wars was taking over the box office and inflation was hitting hard. But in the world of coin collecting, the U.S. Mint continued producing the iconic Lincoln penny just as they had since 1909. Now, the 1978 Lincoln penny was struck in two locations, Philadelphia and Denver. If your penny has a little D under the date, that means it was minted in Denver. But if there's no mint mark at all, congratulations, you have a Philadelphia minted penny. So what makes some 1978 pennies extremely valuable? It all comes down to rare errors and condition. Here are some of the most valuable errors you need to look out for. 1. Double die obverse DDO. This error happens when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice, creating a ghost-like doubling effect. Look closely at the words Liberty and In God We Trust. If the letters appear doubled, bingo. You've got a rare one. 2. Off-center strikes. If the design is misaligned and shifted off-center by 5% to 50%, it's a collectible jackpot. The more off-center it is without cutting off the date, the more valuable it becomes. 3. Clipped planchet. Sometimes a portion of the coin is missing due to a minting mistake. These odd-shaped pennies can fetch a nice price depending on how dramatic the clip is. 4. Floating roof error. On some 1978 pennies, the roof of the Lincoln Memorial appears detached or floating. This happens due to excessive die polishing, and collectors love finding this quirky mistake. So, how much are these error pennies actually worth? Let's take a look at some jaw-dropping auction results. Pushpin, a rare 1978 double die penny in mint state condition, sold for over $1,000 at auction. Pushpin off-center error pennies can range from $50 to $500 depending on how severe the misalignment is. Pushpin high-grade, uncirculated 1978 pennies, especially with a deep red shine, have been known to sell for $2,000 or more. Collectors are constantly searching for these hidden gems, and the demand keeps rising. Could you be the next lucky seller? Now, let's get to the part you've been waiting for. How to spot a valuable 1978 penny. Here's what you need to check. White heavy checkmark color. A bright, reddish tone, RD, is more valuable than a brownish coin, BN. The redder, the better. White heavy checkmark condition. Coins with no scratches, dents, or wear are the most desirable. White heavy checkmark weight. A standard 1978 penny should weigh 3.11 grams. If yours is lighter, it might be an error coin. White heavy checkmark mint mark. No mint mark means it was minted in Philadelphia, but errors and high grades make it valuable. White heavy checkmark errors. Check for doubling, off-center strikes, clipped edges, or the floating roof error, but only if you know exactly what to look for. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might just be running to check your piggy bank. The year was 1986. Ronald Reagan was president, the stock market was booming, and America was embracing a new era of technology and culture. But in the midst of all this, the U.S. Mint was busy producing millions of Lincoln pennies. The 1986 penny was part of the long-running Lincoln Memorial design, which had been in circulation since 1959. These coins were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. But here's the twist. Some of them, especially those from Philadelphia, are worth way more than 1 cent. What makes a simple 1986 penny valuable? Well, errors and unique features are the key. Here are the rare ones you should be hunting for. White heavy checkmark double die obverse, DDO. This error happens when the coin's design is struck twice, creating a slight doubling effect on letters and numbers. Check Liberty and In God We Trust for doubling. If you see it, you're in for a payday. White heavy checkmark off-center strikes. A misaligned strike can cause part of the design to be missing. If you have a penny that's at least 50% off-center but still shows a full date, it can be worth $50 to over $200. White heavy checkmark, no mint mark rarity. Most Philadelphia pennies have no mint mark, but rare high-grade versions, especially those with proof-like qualities, can fetch premium prices. White heavy checkmark die cracks and cuds. Over time, mint dies wear out, causing cracks or raised blobs on the coin. These unique flaws make certain 1986 pennies highly desirable. Now let's talk money. A regular 1986 penny is just 1 cent. Right? Wrong. Depending on its error, condition, and grade, it could be worth a fortune. Pushpin a pristine, MS67 or higher 1986 no mint mark penny has sold for over $3,500 at auction. Pushpin a dramatic off-center strike penny can command $150 to $500. Pushpin a double die variety could bring in $100 to $1,000, depending on the strength of the doubling. Collectors and error coin specialists love these unique finds, and demand for high-grade specimens is stronger than ever. So, how do you find one of these rare 1986 pennies? Here's what to do. Magnifying glass tilted left, check the date. Look for a clear, well-struck 1986 penny. Magnifying glass tilted left, inspect under magnification, search for doubling, die cracks, or missing details. Magnifying glass tilted left, weigh it. A standard 1986 penny should weigh 2.5 grams. If yours is significantly different, you might have a rare variety. Magnifying glass tilted left, condition matters. The closer to mint state MS67+, the higher the value. Now, here's your challenge. Go through your penny jar, your old coin collection, even the change in your car. Have you ever come across a valuable 1986 penny? Drop a comment below and let us know what you find. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more rare coin tips, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. That's right, you might have a fortune hiding in your pocket change right now. But how do you know if your 1994 penny is a rare and valuable one? Stick with me, because today we're diving deep into the secrets of this overlooked coin and revealing the key details that could make it worth serious cash. The 1994 Lincoln penny was part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1994, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of these pennies annually, primarily in Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, marked with a D, with proof versions struck in San Francisco, S mint mark. While most 1994 pennies are only worth face value, there are certain rare varieties, errors, and high-grade examples that can fetch impressive sums at auction. But what exactly makes these coins so special? Let's take a closer look. Some 1994 pennies contain fascinating mint errors that dramatically increase their value. Here are some to look out for. Double die error. This occurs when the coin is struck twice with a slight misalignment, causing noticeable doubling in areas like the date, the lettering Liberty, or In God We Trust. Off-center strike. If your penny was struck incorrectly and part of the design is missing, it can be worth more. The value increases the more off-center the coin is, especially if the date is still visible. Clipped planchet. Some 1994 pennies have a small portion of the coin missing due to an error in the cutting process. These are rare and sought after by collectors. Die breaks or cuts. If you notice extra raised metal on the surface, it could be from a cracked die, which collectors love. Missing letters or weak strikes. Coins with faded or missing letters due to a weak strike or grease-filled die can also be valuable. Now let's talk about the money. How much are these rare 1994 pennies actually selling for? A high grade, perfectly preserved 1994 penny graded MS67 or higher can sell for $500 to $2,000 at auction because they are incredibly rare in such pristine condition. A 1994 penny with a strong doubled die error has been known to sell for over $1,000 depending on the severity of the doubling and its condition. Off-center strike errors vary in value but can fetch anywhere from $50 to $300, especially if the date is clearly visible. Die breaks, clipped planchets, and missing letters can sell anywhere between $20 to $500 depending on rarity and demand. Collectors are always hunting for error coins, and high-grade examples can be tough to find, making them even more valuable. If you have a 1994 penny, here's what you need to check. White heavy checkmark mint condition. The closer to flawless, the better. Look for pennies with sharp details, no scratches, and strong luster. White heavy checkmark no mint mark. If your 1994 penny has no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia, but only specific errors and high grades make it valuable. White heavy checkmark errors. Use a magnifying glass to check for doubling, missing letters, or die cracks. White heavy checkmark color and weight. A copper-plated zinc penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If your penny is heavier, it might be a rare transitional error. White heavy checkmark professional grading. If you suspect your penny is rare, getting it graded by PCGS or NGC can boost its value significantly. So, have you ever found a rare 1994 penny in your collection? Let me know in the comments. And before you spend another penny, check your change. You might be holding a small fortune. But how do you know if you have a rare and valuable one? Let's break it down. Before we dive into the rare features that make some 2004 pennies so valuable, let's talk about why these coins were minted. The 2004 Lincoln penny was part of the long-running series featuring Abraham Lincoln, a design that's been in circulation since 1909. These pennies were produced in the billions, but here's the thing, not all of them were created equal. Some were struck with rare errors that make them highly desirable to collectors. And trust me, these mistakes can turn a common penny into a small fortune. Now, this is where things get exciting. There are several errors you need to look for on your 2004 no mint mark penny. Let's go over the biggest moneymakers. Magnifying glass tilted left double die error. Some 2004 pennies have doubling on Lincoln's eye, the date, or the word liberty. This type of error, known as a double die, happens when the coin is struck twice by mistake. These can sell for hundreds of dollars depending on their condition. Magnifying glass tilted left off-center strike. If your penny looks like part of it is missing or the design is pushed to one side, you could have an off-center strike. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable it can be. Some have sold for over $500. Magnifying glass tilted left die breaks. Cuds. Ever seen a blob or raised mark on a penny? This is caused by a crack in the die during minting, leading to a cud error. Collectors love these unique mistakes, and rare examples can be worth a pretty penny, literally. Magnifying glass tilted left missing letters or weak strike. If your coin is missing part of In God We Trust or Liberty, it could be due to a weak strike or grease-filled die error. Depending on how dramatic the missing details are, these can sell for hundreds of dollars too. So just how much are collectors willing to pay for these rare 2004 pennies? Let's look at some real-life sales. Moneybag A 2004 double die penny in near-perfect condition recently sold for over $300. Moneybag an off-center strike error penny brought in more than $500 at auction. Moneybag a rare die break, cud. Penny fetched over $200. That's right, folks, these aren't just random pennies. Collectors are constantly on the hunt for these rare errors. And if you have one in great condition, you might just hit the jackpot. What to look for in your 2004 penny? Alright, now that you know what makes a 2004 penny valuable, here's how to check yours. White heavy checkmark color and condition. Bright red, uncirculated pennies are worth more. Look for ones with minimal scratches and wear. White heavy checkmark weight check. Copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. If your 2004 penny is heavier, you might have something special. White heavy checkmark magnifying glass test. Use a magnifier to check for doubled letters, missing details, or cracks in the design. White heavy checkmark edge and rim inspection. If your penny has a thick rim on one side and a thin rim on the other, it could be an off-center error. So, have you ever found a 2004 penny with an error? If not, now's the time to check your change. Who knows? You might be sitting on a small fortune without even realizing it. Before we dive into the rare features that make some 2004 pennies so valuable, let's talk about why these coins were minted. The 2004 Lincoln penny was part of the long-running series featuring Abraham Lincoln, a design that's been in circulation since 1909. These pennies were produced in the billions, but here's the thing, not all of them were created equal. Some were struck with rare errors that make them highly desirable to collectors. And trust me, these mistakes can turn a common penny into a small fortune. Now, this is where things get exciting. There are several errors you need to look for on your 2004 Nomad Mark penny. Let's go over the biggest moneymakers: magnifying glass tilted left double die error. Some 2004 pennies have doubling on Lincoln's eye, the date, or the word liberty. This type of error, known as a double die, happens when the coin is struck twice by mistake. These can sell for hundreds of dollars depending on their condition. Magnifying glass tilted left off-center strike. If your penny looks like part of it is missing or the design is pushed to one side, you could have an off-center strike. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable it can be. Some have sold for over $500. Magnifying glass tilted left die breaks. Cuds. Ever seen a blob or raised mark on a penny? This is caused by a crack in the die during minting, leading to a cud error. Collectors love these unique mistakes, and rare examples can be worth a pretty penny. Literally. Magnifying glass tilted left missing letters or weak strike. If your coin is missing part of "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," it could be due to a weak strike or grease-filled die error. Depending on how dramatic the missing details are, these can sell for hundreds of dollars too. So just how much are collectors willing to pay for these rare 2004 pennies? Let's look at some real-life sales. Moneyag, a 2004 double die penny in near-perfect condition, recently sold for over $300. Moneyag, an off-center strike error penny, brought in more than $500 at auction. Moneyag, a rare die break cud penny, fetched over $200. That's right, folks, these aren't just random pennies. Collectors are constantly on the hunt for these rare errors, and if you have one in great condition, you might just hit the jackpot. Alright, now that you know what makes a 2004 penny valuable, here's how to check yours. White heavy checkmark, color and condition. Bright red, uncirculated pennies are worth more. Look for ones with minimal scratches and wear. White heavy checkmark, weight check. Copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. If your 2004 penny is heavier, you might have something special. White heavy checkmark, magnifying glass test. Use a magnifier to check for doubled letters, missing details, or cracks in the design. White heavy checkmark, edge and rim inspection. If your penny has a thick rim on one side and a thin rim on the other, it could be an off-center error. So, have you ever found a 2004 penny with an error? If not, now's the time to check your change. Who knows? You might be sitting on a small fortune without even realizing it. Direct hit comment below if you have a 2004 penny and let us know what you find. Thumbs up like this video if you learned something new. Loudspeaker subscribe for more rare coin discoveries and money-making tips. Thanks for watching and happy hunting. You never know, your next big payday might just be hiding in your pocket.